Hello, Vincent Carroll speaking. This is tutorial number 21. One reason why people come to me a lot is they may complain of a loss of energy. Now, what exactly is that? How on earth do you measure it? And what is energy to one person may not be energy to somebody else. So I try to put an element of proportionality into it before I begin. Just at the very beginning of my case history, I try to get to know the person. What do they work at? Are they studying? Are they working manually? What is their sleep like? What is their nutrition like? Just to get some idea. Is it reasonable that that person doesn't have a lot of energy? What do they mean by a lot of energy? How did they actually measure it? So these are important questions before you even begin. But if I do form the point of view that the person is spleen Qi deficient, because they may, despite a reasonable amount of sleep, still wake up with a lack of refreshment, and even if they get extra sleep, they still wake up with a lack of refreshment. And just supposing as well, if their memorization and concentration is off, naturally you look for other things as well, such as the spleen not holding blood, lack of upright Qi, and above all the presence of damp. That's to say that there isn't enough energy to keep the fluid within the cells, so the fluid drizzles down as evening progresses to make sock marks, for example, or else they'll bottleneck proximal to the person's knees, because knees provide quite an obstacle to extracellular fluid, which we call damp in acupuncture English, drizzling down into the ankles. But one way or the other, you form a point of view. So the question is why? What about the lifestyle of the person? It's nice if they're just working too hard. I mean, that's commendable, obviously, so you advise them on that. But many people who come to me don't seem to be working particularly hard. They don't seem to be studying particularly hard either, and yet they still have a lack of what we would call, or what is called energy, what we would call spleen Qi. So the question is why? What on earth's going on? Well, you look for the usual suspects, obviously. I mean, are they sleeping well and all of that? And if you form the point of view, yes, there doesn't seem to be a problem there, then of course perhaps damp is reinvading the spleen. You're looking for other reasons that are not lifestyle related. And if damp isn't invading the spleen, you then must ask what else is going on. And the other great suspect, of course, is liver invading spleen, or to be more precise, liver invading the middle jiao. But in the middle jiao, of course, you have liver and you have spleen, so it's very easy for the liver to invade the spleen. And I find that that's a very common reason for a loss of energy. Let's put ordinary English on that. What are we talking about? In my opinion, we're talking about somebody perhaps who has a particular pent-up anger, or even sort of a frustration about their lack of achievement with their own ambitions, a sense of obsession that may be a good obsession or a not so good obsession, but one way or the other is causing a liver Qi stagnation, and that liver invades the spleen. And I believe one of the commonest reasons in Ireland anyway why people might be spleen Qi deficient is because liver invading spleen. So the problem isn't really the spleen, unless the spleen fails to transform fluid and damp reinvades the spleen, of course, but the real problem is the liver. So you must always check out the liver. Now, very often the signs are there on the tongue, for example, the red rolled edges. Red and rolled, or more red than rolled, or more rolled than red. But red rolled edges is how it's usually described about in the textbooks. That's, I suppose, the first thing you think about. Second thing might be any evidence in the lower jiao of liver energy accumulating, the bloated abdomen, the sense of uncomfortableness. And if you have an accumulation of liver Qi in the lower jiao, well, the next port of call obviously is the middle jiao, where the spleen is. So I come across many people who are spleen Qi deficient. In other words, they lack ordinary daily walkabout energy. They're not down at kidney level. They do have motivation. After all, they've come to see you. But it's ordinary spleen Qi deficiency. They might even morph into spleen yang Qi deficiency, which is next on the slippery slope heading down. But these are people who have their spleen Qi deficiency, and it's due to the liver invading spleen. So from my point of view, that's one of the commonest things that I come across very often, liver invading spleen. So the treatment obviously is to move the liver 3, gallbladder 34, and then tonify the spleen, by all means, spleen 6, stomach 36, ren 12, and why not the source point spleen 3 as well. But to be cognizant that just treating the spleen is not enough. One needs to know what is the reason for the spleen being down, and in the absence of lifestyle, in the absence of hard physical work or hard mental work, in the absence of damp re-invading the spleen, the other suspect is liver invading the spleen. So an awful lot of patients, a lot of the clients who come to me have liver invading the spleen. So it's something I'm always on the lookout for. Thank you very much.